Hello YouTube, Thibaut Van Dam here with another YouTube video. And for those of you who are not familiar with my channel, I am a DIY singer-songwriter based in Southeast London, and today I'm very excited to be continuing my video series all about music royalties. So I started this video series a couple weeks ago, and the main goal of it was basically to inform people that work in the music industry about their own rights to their contributions to music. And I know that sounds general and vague, but the thing is that music is something that sort of is used everywhere. It's profited from in lots of different ways. And it's also possible to be involved in music in a lot of different ways too. So the point was ultimately to just try to help people understand how their music is being used by giving, real world examples of sort of where there's profit being made, and to ultimately target and sort of challenge this belief that I think a lot of musicians have, which is this belief about selling out theory, which is that, people that write music are so dignified and that they can't accept money, for what they've done. And I think that challenge, a lot of creative people deal with that challenge. But I think for musicians in particular, it's especially difficult. But the truth is that music is being profited from in a lot of different ways. And I think the way to solve that is basically to help illustrate to musicians the ways that their music is being used, and to ultimately, show who's making money. And then when you see that other people are making money, when you see that people are actually using what you've made, it's a lot easier to accept that money, because you think, actually, I helped make that. And, unfortunately, we don't want to feed back into the ego of musicians either, but it does, I think it's part of it, because I think it's like, yeah, maybe musicians are egotistical, but it's a fragile ego, at least with me. So I think that a lot of people, they don't fully understand the ins and outs. So the point of the video series was to talk about the rights associated with music creation, basically, and also to kind of talk about institutions. Now, along the way, I ran into a dilemma, basically. So in my last video, I looked at distribution, and digital distribution basically creates a royalty called the mechanical streaming royalty. And I planned basically after that video to talk about something called the mechanical royalty. And it occurred to me that this was actually a really complicated thing, because you got the mechanical streaming royalty and then you have mechanical royalties. And as I tried to make this video about mechanical royalties, I basically realized that, and I wanted to talk about the difference, and I'll talk about the difference in this video, but, it occurred to me that actually, that the difference is so fundamental to do with music creation that actually it's deserving of its own video entirely, just to talk about this and to help break down this main idea. Because as a musician, as someone who's writing music, recording music, this was something that I just didn't grasp, and it was really difficult to understand, and I finally think I got a good idea about it. So I just want to make this video basically to talk about some fundamental ideas that dictate which royalties you can be entitled to, try to really get into the details. And also, I just want to talk about, there's a lot I want to get through, and I haven't written any notes, so I'm really hoping that I don't waste anyone's time here. But I also want to talk about the international systems that are associated with these royalties. And I also just want to maybe have a little moment where I rant a bit about cryptocurrencies a little bit, because I think it would be an interesting thing to see in the music industry. So the first thing that I want to address is this idea about mechanical streaming royalties versus mechanical royalties. And what is the difference? Well, mechanical streaming royalties are generated for people that own recording rights holders, okay? And mechanical royalties, on the other hand, are generated for people that are authors of written works, okay? So I'll say it in even fewer words. There are authorship rights and there are recording rights. And these two rights generate different royalties. Also, these two rights have an interaction with one another, and also these rights are not exclusive to one another. So you could be an author and not the person that owns the recording, and you can also be the person that owns the recording and didn't write the song. So there's a lot of weird examples to go through. But to get into more detail about all this, I just want to say that authors, I want to go into the detail of the difference between what you need to be, what constitutes an author versus what constitutes a recording rights holder. So I'll start with recording rights holder, because that's really dead simple. Recording rights holders are people that own recordings. It's pretty simple. To own a recording, there are three really general examples I can give. One, you pay a studio to help make a recording. That's one option. Two is if you buy your own equipment like I do. I have all my own equipment right here. And when I make my own recordings, I own my recordings because I own the equipment. I made the recording. It belongs to me. And then thirdly, there's another weird example, which is that if you work in a label or as a producer on musicians' works, if you're helping people develop their music, you could be considered someone that could possibly be entitled to recording rights, basically, because if you say, I worked on this I contributed as an arranger, then you can identify, you talk with the artist, of course, it's something that you have to negotiate, but producers play an important role, I think, in the development of things. And so in the end, they might end up becoming part of the recording rights holder. That's the thing. So that's another third example of how you could become a recording rights holder. And there are other royalties associated with being involved with recordings and not being the recording rights holder, but I'll save that for another video. Now, on the other hand, we have authorship rights. So what does it mean to be an author? So there are some obvious ways to think about this. Firstly, you could write the lyrics. You could write the composition, so you could be a composer, or you could also be an arranger, which is sort of part of composition. The way that I think of arrangement, there are two ways to think about it, for me at least. One is you could help with the arrangement in terms of structuring the song. So if you decide, oh no, we need to put the chorus first. Someone's written a song, they show it to you, and then it's conventional, and then there's like an intro and a verse, and then a bridge, and then a chorus or something. And then you say, no, we got to start with the intro or something like that. That's part of arrangement. Another way to think about arrangement actually has to do with production. It has to do with instrumentation and deciding what instruments are going to do what parts. So you might say that there's this melody that I'm singing, but then you say, no, that would sound a lot better as an electric guitar bit or something. That's also arrangement, and that ties in to production. So hopefully you can see where the crossover begins, at least. You could be involved in the arrangement in terms of authorship, and then that could be affected with recording rights. See? So there is sort of a crossover here. So another thing to talk about is this idea that, so talking about what it means to be an author, right? To get authorship royalties and authorship rights. So you could be a lyricist, composer, or arranger. And then this final thing, you could be a publisher. Publishing. Now, publishing is the next topic I need to talk about. Publishing is confusing. And I thought I understood it. I thought it made sense to me, and then it didn't. And then I was like, screw this. I am going to go and find out what music publishing is. So it's a weird thing. And for a lot of DIY artists, publishing is not an obvious thing. It's not clear what it means. So the first way I thought about it was to do with books and publishing books. So when you publish a book, you have an author, someone who's written the book. Then you have editors usually who are also involved in the authorship of the book because they help sort of create the book in a way that's easier to read and portrays the ideas of the author maybe better. And then you also have publishers. Publishers are also considered part of authorship because they basically print the book and they also promote and serve to monetize the book. So usually there are arrangements between authors, I'm sure J.K. Rowling, and also her publishing company, that they have an agreement that her publishing company gets a cut of all of her sales because they are working to disseminate her book. They're working to basically spread the word, inform people about Harry Potter and get people to read it. That's what publishing is. And so to take that definition and extract it and put it into music publishing is basically the business of promoting and also monetizing written compositions. Now, I'll say it again, just because that's where it affiliates with authorship rights, not recording rights. Music promotion is music publishing, my bad. Music publishing is the business of promoting and monetizing written compositions. So that means that it is affiliated with authorship. So what do you need to be entitled to be a publisher? So publishing is a weird thing. Basically, publishing is an inherent right of songwriters. So if you've written, and when I say songwriter, I mean the people that write the lyrics, composition, or the arrangement. If you are involved in those first three things, you are also inherently carry the right to be your own publisher. Because if you write your own music and then you share it, if you're trying to spread the word about your own music, you are your own publisher. And it is your own right as the person that wrote those works to be your own publisher. But things get a little bit complicated because you can't just start saying, I'm my own publisher, give me my own publishing royalties. You can't start doing that because you have to be acknowledged by a professional institution, an institution that's mandated by the government, basically, to say that you are the publisher. And this exact institution is the same institution that's collecting your mechanical royalties, okay? So, or your publishing royalties, before we go into the mechanical side of things, because mechanical royalties are a publishing royalty, basically. But in order to collect your publishing royalties, you have to work with the institutions that basically are the people that collect this royalty. So it gets a little bit weird because you would think that it should be easy, and it is actually. So to join a publishing company, to identify yourself as the publisher of your own music, it's pretty simple. You go to a mechanical royalty collection society. In the United Kingdom, that would be MCPS. And you basically tell them, look, I am my own publisher. And then they ask you for ID and they ask you for proof that your music is being published, basically. And that could be as simple as a video of you playing that song on YouTube. It could also be a link to a Spotify song, a song on Spotify, something like that. That's how you can prove that you are your own publisher. And yeah, it costs you a little bit of money. And they work as an administrative company. So they're taking a percentage of your digital revenue, your publishing, not your digital revenue, what am I saying? They're taking a cut of your authorship royalties, basically, to administrate their own company. And the UK it's definitely better. It's not ideal, but it's definitely better than the US. In the UK, fortunately, PRS for music and MCPS are closely linked, basically. And this is because they are both authorship royalty collection societies. So PRS basically defends the rights of songwriters, people that are writing the lyrics, the composition, or the arrangement. PRS is working for that. And MCPS is basically working for publishers who are also authors. And so if you want to get any publishing royalties, you have to identify yourself as the publisher. Now, there is a reason why publishing has been considered a distinct practice from, well, actually, before I say that, something I will say is in the United States, this system is absolute garbage. I said before that the US system, the UK system is better than the US system, and it is by miles. And this is because in the US, basically, you can't identify yourself as your own publisher. And not only can you not identify yourself as your own publisher, you can't claim your own publishing royalties. So let's say you write music and you're a DIY songwriter and you've joined PRS for music. You've joined, ASCAP or BMI, a US-based performance rights organization. Every time you play a gig, money is being generated. And I talk all about this in my performance rights video where I talk about songwriter royalties and that sort of thing. That's the first video in the series. I'll put a link in the description in the corner as well. But, you join one of these pros in the US and you're only going to get 50% of the performance royalties. Only 50%, because 50% goes to the songwriter and 50% goes to the publisher. Now, we know what a publisher is, and that just doesn't seem fair. What seems even extra unfair is the fact that you can't even identify yourself as your own publisher. And the reason for this distinction is because years ago, it used to be that the people that wrote music were not the same people that were good at promoting it. And so publishing, in a way, is maybe the least musical of all of the practices of authorship. That when you publish music, you are basically promoting it. You're basically working in marketing. It's a marketing gig, And musicians are not always the best at marketing themselves. So not only does understanding what it means to be a publisher affect you on a financial level, but it also affects you in a spiritual way. Because you basically, when you acknowledge yourself as your own publisher, you basically have to say that you are your biggest advocate, that you are the person that's going to work harder than anybody else to get people to listen to your music. And for someone like myself, it's an esteem thing. You basically have to say, you know what, I'm not just doing this for me. I'm doing this because I think people will really value my music. They'll see the meaning in it. They'll find purpose in it. They'll find all the benefits that music offers us, and acknowledging that you see that value and you don't only see it exclusive to yourself, but something that people can see the value in. So it's a tough thing to try to accept. So there's a reason why people sign up to music publishing companies. There's a reason for it. It's because musicians are not the best really at acknowledging their own value. And it's that problem with selling out and everything else, that they can't just own the fact that they've made something that's really worthwhile. And ultimately it points towards the idea that these systems are convoluted, This is the real problem, I think, and this is what all leads me, and this is what I started saying before, this is what leads me to believe that the US system and actually the music industry as a whole is actually totally slanted. It's a really biased system that does not benefit musicians, people that actually write music. They are critically undervalued in society, and it just is such an obvious point, because when you think about what's involved in actually identifying yourself as your own publisher, the fact you can't even do it in the United States suggests that actually that they're trying to disempower songwriters. People that write music and songwriters, these are the people that are actually making the music that surrounds us. And not letting those people claim their inherent right to be their own publisher is like a really deceiving way of disempowering them. It's saying that actually, no, you can't do this. You have to work through a professional institution. And in the US, in order to claim your publishing rights, you have to work with a publishing administrative company, which is going to cost you money, and they're going to take an enormous administrative cost. So this is the thing that actually, in the end, what ends up happening is you end up having to pay to claim your own rights, your own inherent rights. And I think that's garbage, notwithstanding the fact that actually the music industry also uses really unfortunate terminology, a lot of this overlapping phrasing. Mechanical streaming royalties, mechanical royalties. Why are we using the same words? They're different things. Mechanical authorship royalties, mechanical streaming royalties for recording rights holders. These are different things, and they're completely separated based on what you do. So this leads me to kind of my final point of this rant, which is the idea that, I've been reading the news about things like cryptocurrencies and trying to understand it better. And a big part of it has to do with blockchain technology, which is trustless technology, where people basically can trust a computer system, it's a peer-to-peer reviewed system, which basically means that anytime a transaction or something goes through, it is verified by not just one person, but by a series of people. And by decentralizing basically the information and the practice of that information, it basically means that it's more trustworthy than a centralized government. And it means also not only that, but it also means that creators and consumers basically can work directly with each other through the peer-reviewed system. So this is kind of the thing that really I started thinking about, which is that all of these royalties that I'm talking about, we're basically talking about the creator on one hand, and then we're talking about the consumer, the flow of money, where all the money comes from and why, therefore, you should get it. And in between these two things is this third body, this third institution, this third wheel that's basically working as a middleman. And wherever there's a royalty that exists for musicians, songwriters, or recording rights holders, wherever there's a royalty that exists, there is also a professional body that works to protect those rights and royalties and basically tries to make sure that institutions and businesses that profit from that are therefore paying you fairly. And in between this triangle, this weird triangle we've got, these institutions are profiting. They're basic, so PRS for music takes an administrative cost. MCPS for music takes an administrative cost. All these things basically are taking 10 to 15% of all of your royalties, basically just to upkeep themselves so that they can get you what you're owed. And it's a weird thing to think about because, they do get you what you're owed. This is the other thing that PRS for music, I think, to be clear, I don't think PRS for music is bad. I don't think MCPS is bad either. I think they're great institutions. They're pretty clear to understand. And ultimately, not only do they pay you this money, but they actually work as a professional body going to businesses and making sure they're paying to use your music, and then they're therefore paying you. So that's quite a formidable thing. And you hear about performance rights organizations that are pretty dastardly when it comes, or not dastardly, but they're pretty severe when it comes to actually people who are using the music and making sure that those people are paying for it. So it's an interesting thing. And it's one of these things that's kind of inspiring because when I really think about what blockchain technology maybe offers, it's the opportunity for artists to work immediately with the people that are their fans. So instead of having to work through Spotify, you would be able to arrange that people could listen to your music directly from you somehow. And same with getting paid all of your royalties. It could be done through this kind of technology. And it's just an interesting thing because thinking about this side of things and blockchain technology, it really helps to contrast the current system we have. It really illustrates the current system we have because then we think about what we do have. Well, we have all these administrative royalty collection societies that we have to work through, prove ourselves to, and then they take an administrative cost of all of the royalties we claim. Yeah, but it's an interesting thing. I think that the key takeaway from this video, though, is that there's a huge difference between, firstly, that there's a huge difference between authorship rights and also recording rights. These are different things, and that you could be the author and not the recorder, the recording rights holder, or you could also be the recording rights holder and not the author. For instance, if you did a cover. I think another thing to point out is that being a publisher, music publisher, is considered part of authorship royalties, authorship rights, and that anyone that writes their own music is inherently their own publisher. But thirdly, that in order to be considered professionally your own publisher, you have to recognize yourself through an institution. In the United Kingdom, that would be working with MCPS by filling out a whole bunch of forms and stuff. And then also in the United States, you would have to work with someone called Songtrust. Songtrust would affiliate you with the Harry Fox agency. And, you know, I have mixed opinions about all this. I don't know exactly what it all means. But all in all, I mean, that's my video for today. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel. I'm so close to 100 subscribers, and it would mean so much if I could hit 100, because then I could change my URL, and I would consider it a milestone. I've been making YouTube videos for about a decade, and I really never asked for anyone to subscribe to my channel. And then, you know, recently in the last maybe year, I started doing it, and I started getting more subscribers. So that's just like a godsend. And it's a sign that I'm doing the right thing. I'm on the right path. So thanks so much for everyone who already subscribes. Thanks so much for everyone that does watch my videos. I hope you found this, you know, useful in some way, even if you're not a musician. And I'll see you at the next video. I will be talking about mechanical royalties in my next video, and it will be hopefully easier to explain because of this ridiculously long video. Thanks so much for watching. Ciao for now.